My name is Carrie Thomas Beck, and I am the Dyslexia Specialist at the Oregon Department of Education. In 2017, the dyslexia legislation in Oregon was updated, and the newest bill, Senate Bill 1003, requires that districts universally screen for risk factors of dyslexia in kindergarten. The bill also requires that districts screen any first grader who is newly enrolled in public school in Oregon. The law goes on to say the areas that districts must include in the screening. So in kindergarten, this includes phonological awareness, rapid naming, and letter-sound correspondences. The law also talks about the requirement for districts to screen for a history of family reading difficulties. And the way districts are required to screen for family history is outlined in the Oregon Administrative Rules. Essentially what the rules say is that if you have a child who shows risk in the universal screening process and that child doesn't respond to instructional support that's provided in addition to core reading instruction, that a district would be required to screen for family history. The purpose of universal screening is to identify children who may need additional instructional support. Universal screeners, by definition, are quick, targeted measures of specific skills, and they target skills that are most predictive of reading success. They're measures that have equivalent forms so that they can be administered 3 to 4 times a year, fall, winter, spring. They're measures that have established reliability and validity so that we know that they will do a good job of identifying children who may be at risk for reading difficulties, including dyslexia. Screeners are designed to do a good job of identifying those children who may show risk for reading difficulties, but the universal screeners will not tell us why a child is at risk for reading difficulties. A child's response to high-quality instruction and intervention is one of the best pieces of information that we have to determine those children who may need additional assessment and possibly a comprehensive evaluation down the line. Senate Bill 1003 doesn't have an explicit requirement for districts to notify parents of the screening results. What the law does require is that the Department of Education develop guidance for districts regarding parental notification. So the department did develop that guidance over the summer of 2018, and that guidance is now posted on the ODE website. And essentially what the guidance says is that best practice is to communicate with parents often and to seek input. Senate Bill 1003 doesn't have explicit requirements for districts regarding what to do if a child does show risk on universal screening. That being said, the department was required to develop guidance for districts regarding best practices for instructional support for children who show risk or for children who have dyslexia. In Oregon, we've worked cross-office at the Department of Education to develop a multi-tiered system of support framework. We call it the Oregon Integrated Systems Framework. The idea is to provide districts with support in providing tiered intervention in the area of reading as well as in other areas, including mathematics, social emotional learning, etc. In terms of focusing on reading, the idea is to start with a high-quality, evidence-based core reading program. And for those children who show risk, to provide additional tiered support. The tiered support begins with very targeted, skill-based instruction. It may be on phonological awareness, it may be on letter-sound correspondences. It's based on the data that's collected from the universal screening tools. For children who don't respond to that first tier of instruction, we have the ability to collect more informal diagnostic information that will help schools develop a more intensive Tier 3 type of intervention that's more comprehensive. So it would address not only skills like phonological awareness, letter-sound correspondences, but also start to incorporate vocabulary, comprehension, fluency. And through that tiered support, which happens in the context of general education, we monitor a child's response. And for those children who don't make adequate progress as a result of that tiered support, we can look at possibly referring that child for a more comprehensive evaluation for a specific learning disability. Sally Shaywitz, who's the director of the Yale Center for Dyslexia and Creativity, has a wonderful quote related to what does good reading instruction look like for students with dyslexia. And essentially what Dr. Shaywitz says is that the reading instruction that is needed for children with dyslexia is based on the very same principles of the reading instruction that we would use to teach any child. However, given the lack of responsiveness with the neural pathways of connecting speech to print in individuals with dyslexia, it's critical that we take that instruction and that we make it more relentless and more amplified so that it penetrates and takes hold. So what do we mean by that? Well, we want to start with instruction that is focused on the structure of English language. This would be instruction that includes phonology, an emphasis on orthography, morphology, syntax, and semantics. And focusing on those critical components of the structure of language, then we also need to think about how we are teaching those elements or pieces. And in terms of how we teach it, we want to make sure that we're very explicit, that we are especially systematic and supportive, and that we're very diagnostic in our teaching so that on a day-to-day basis, based on how a child performs on today's lesson, we can take that information and further design tomorrow's lesson. So if we need to reteach a skill or continue to practice a skill so that a child learns it to the point of mastery and automaticity, that we would be able to do that. I often have parents ask me if the intervention has to be based on the Orton-Gillingham approach, and the answer is no, it doesn't. The Orton-Gillingham approach, those programs that are based on that approach are absolutely systematic and explicit and allow the teacher to be very diagnostic in his or her teaching. But there are other evidence-based programs that are available that also have those characteristics. If a district's fall data from the universal screening process in kindergarten shows a large percentage of children showing risk, then it's really important for a district to closely examine the quality of its core reading program. We want to make sure that that reading instruction is evidence-based, that it's systematic and explicit for all of those incoming kindergarten students, that the core program allows for both large group instruction as well as small group differentiated instruction. In addition, for those children who show the most risk on that universal screening, districts will want to think about using their resources to provide additional support, sometimes considered to be a double dose of reading instruction in small group. In the core instruction, as well as that tiered support, we want to make sure that the instruction addresses what David Kilpatrick calls the formula for word reading success. And there are three parts to that formula. First, we want to make sure that the instruction teaches phonological awareness skills and teaches those skills to the advanced level. And what I mean by that is that we teach phoneme deletion and phoneme substitution. We don't just stop at phoneme segmentation. We also want to make sure that the instruction teaches phonic decoding and does so in an explicit and systematic manner. And then finally, that the instruction includes ample opportunities for children to practice those newly emerging skills in connected text. Senate Bill 1003 requires that at least one K-5 teacher in each K-5 school complete dyslexia-related training. The Senate bill does not, however, have any requirements for districts in terms of what that individual must do after he or she completes the training. The department has provided some guidance to districts related to the responsibilities of the teacher who has completed the training in the area of dyslexia. And essentially what the department has recommended is that districts look to this person, of course, as being a resource in the building. This person can answer questions regarding dyslexia that come from parents or that come from colleagues. This person is also well equipped to sit as a member on the student study team and help the team look at the screening data, help the team make decisions about the types of intervention that would be appropriate for various groups of children, and also work with that team for those children who don't respond to that initial tiered support to help further intensify and individualize the tiered support that's provided to some of the children. In the current biennium, we had $1.9 million allocated to help districts offset the cost of dyslexia training for the one individual person in each K-5 school. We don't have additional funding to support the training of general educators beyond the one person in each building. That being said, I, in my role, have been working on spending more time out in the field working directly with teachers, and specifically focusing this year on how to teach phonological awareness and then how to intensify and individualize that phonological awareness instruction to meet the needs of children who are most at risk for reading difficulties. In the future, I'd also like to continue that professional development and focus more on techniques for word studies that teachers can integrate beginning in kindergarten up through second grade, and that will help reinforce the connection between phonological awareness and print, helping children make that connection. Districts should have systems in place to support older struggling readers. Typically, that support will consist of two components. One would be providing some type of reading intervention based on that individual student's needs and his or her levels of mastery of the basic foundational skills in reading. The second piece of that support is providing accommodations to the student. So what type of technology, for example, is available to help that student access text, to access all of that subject area from content areas like social studies, science, as well as English. Also looking at accommodations like, can the child be provided additional time during testing? Can the items on the test be read aloud to the child? Whatever accommodations that will again allow that child to access his or her strengths and to demonstrate his or her knowledge of that content area. So districts now have requirements to universally screen for risk factors of dyslexia in kindergarten. That is the starting point for districts, and based on that data, districts will provide students who are showing risk with instructional support based on their needs. Districts don't test for dyslexia simply for the sake of testing for dyslexia. Districts instead operate under federal regulations, specifically the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. If a child meets the eligibility requirements for a specific learning disability in the area of reading, if the child's disability has adverse effects on the child's educational performance, and if the child needs special education as a result of the disability, then the child will qualify for special education services. What's really important to understand is that dyslexia exists along a continuum. Students who have dyslexia may experience it less severely or more severely, or somewhere in the middle. And those children who have the more mild to moderate dyslexia can be adequately supported within the context of general education. So if you suspect your child has dyslexia, and your child's dyslexia falls on the mild to moderate part of that continuum, you can speak with your child's counselor, with your school's student study team, and share those concerns. Talk to those individuals about the types of accommodations that your child needs to be able to access his or her strengths. If a parent chooses to have an outside evaluation for dyslexia completed, that does not automatically mean that a child would qualify for special education services. The parent absolutely will want to share that data from the outside evaluation with the school team and discuss the results with the team. Also, that team will look at other data that's been collected within the school setting and make a decision about whether or not there's enough data there that would support a referral for a comprehensive evaluation within the school. The department developed guidance on dyslexia screening and instructional support over the summer of 2018. Districts and parents can find a copy of that guidance on the dyslexia page of the ODE website. Simply start by going to oregon.gov/ODE and then search for dyslexia.